Ladies and gentlemen, I hope that the world is treating you the way you want it to treat you. I hope that the sun is shining and the birds are singing. I hope the wind is at your back. I have something today for all of you that I think you're going to enjoy. So, aloha and welcome to today's episode where we have an extraordinary guest who has dedicated over 4 decades to advancing mental health, personal growth, and the art of compassionate communication. Jill Robin Payne has not only carved out a distinguished career as a psychotherapist, author, and educator, but she's also pioneered the concept of Be Empathy, a transformative approach that fuses empathy with lighthearted banter to create stronger, more harmonious relationships. With a master's degree in clinical psychology, Jill has taught behavior modification, lectured across the country, and contributed to national discussions on mental health through her appearances on radio, television, and social media. Her journey began as the first student from her college to intern at the prestigious National Institutes of Health, followed by her master's work at the Veterans Administration Hospital in Houston. Throughout her illustrious career, Jill has developed rehabilitative programs, shared her insights at top medical conferences, and even authored guidebooks aimed at empowering the emotionally and physically challenged. Whether she's speaking on the intersection of social psychology and current events or advocating for mental health as essential as physical well being, Jill's passion shines through. She's committed to spreading the goodness by integrating mind, body, and the power of Be Empathy in everything that she does. Today, we're going to explore her unique contributions to mental health, her innovative work, and her journey as an inspiring thought leader in a world that's rapidly evolving. Jill, welcome to the podcast. Thank you so much for being here today.
Aloha to you, George. I'm telling you, my head just got this big. I don't know if I'll be able to fit out in my house. Thank you
You've been
so
doing,
much.
yeah,
Yeah.
thank you.
You
You've been doing
you
so
just
much.
yeah, I was going to say you just did Bempathy. You by giving me all those kudos, it hits a region in the brain where I get a reward, and it's just like you gave me $100 bill or some chocolate, which is my favorite. I mean, look at my face. Look at it. I'm beaming. Thank you so much. I really mean it. Yeah.
Well,
So,
I think you're at the forefront. Like I see this whole new sort of awareness that seems to be emerging, whether it's in the workplace, whether it's in mental health, whether it's in
right,
the communication we have in our families and our friends and all of our relationships. And I think that you have kind
right.
of been pioneering this for quite some time. Maybe you can give us a little bit of
Yes.
background on some of the foundation stones of what you've been teaching.
So let me give you a little bit of foundation from me. I have
Please.
my parents, I have one that is still alive, my mom, and my dad was an ophthalmologist who did good deeds all across the world. Really, he volunteered his services in Africa. My mom has helped anybody that needs help. She has monuments for people that have needed help. I have to be very careful with what I say. And so they trained me, and not just trained me, I saw they modeled how
Mm.
important it is that we are not the only people in the world and that no one is perfect. And so that's how it came to be. And then I became a recreational therapist helping the mentally ill because I have a brother that has paranoid schizophrenia. And
Mm.
so that's how it started in the mental health field, because I wanted to help my brother. And way back when, even now, even though you hear about it, people don't really understand it, George. And so now I've morphed into a communication coach and a social psychology individual. So I say that because people, when you say therapy, what do you think of when I say therapy? What do you think
Like
of?
scary problems, like the
Hey,
psychological problems. Maybe they're not trustworthy.
right. So that's how come I like to stay away from that. And
Mm.
even when my clients see me, they say I'm more like a friend. I've got a couch, I've got a bunch of comfortable chairs, and I have a desk that I never sit behind, and I let everyone pick where they want to sit. I've had some people sit on the floor. And so, yeah. And so Bempathy is really where you put both parties first, because you want to think in your head, I want a win-win situation. And isn't life perception?
Yep.
Think about it, right?
Yeah.
So I'm going to perceive that this interview is going to go great, and it's going to go
It
right.
is.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there you go.
I think
Yeah,
so. Like, prior to getting started, I had mentioned to you
yeah,
the title of your new book, The Third Side of the Coin, and, like, I didn't
right,
even realize that, and I'm curious,
right.
like, it was like the light bulb went off in my mind. I'm like, "The third side of the coin? What's she talking about?" And then I looked down, I'm like, "Oh,
Right,
yeah," and on the cover, you have, like, that third little coin. It's like this
right.
Ariadne thread that
Yeah,
connects everything. How did that come to
yes.
be? Like, maybe you could fill us in on that.
I will fill you in on that.
Thank you.
So I learn from people. And so I did a lot of group therapy. And when I do
Okay.
group therapy, I do what I call just the whiteboard. I'll put a word on the whiteboard, and then everybody else will tell me what they think that word means to them. And then we just put all these things out there and talk, and we come to a conclusion. So if I'm talking about relationships, they tell me what they think of relationships. Well, anyway, I was talking about how there are two sides to a coin.
Mhm.
And my crowd that I was talking to is they were saying, Jill, look at this coin. It has three sides. I don't remember who or what. It was just one of the times I did group, because I learn a lot from people. And if people would just do that, you will learn so much from other people, which will make you even a better person. So that's how it came to be. And I was thinking, that's what I do. I help people see another side. And I came up with, I mean, it's been 40 years. So I've been building on this for 40 years. And it really boomed before COVID. It boomed
Right.
before COVID, when we were getting so involved with our cell phones, and we were texting more. I had a client come in, and she was talking to me, and she just said, I talked to my boyfriend and he said this. And I said, well, did you talk or did you talk? And this was
Right.
years ago. This is talking. So they have group dates,
Mm.
talking this way, and that's okay. If you're going to do that, the more you practice something, the better you are at it. So I am not very good at this. How are you, George? I don't know. I'm not. I have my clients. They just go like this. I'm not very good. I'm better at this. And so
Yeah.
we just need a balance. And so that's how I, with my clients, the people I've been working with, I've seen what's going on. You see it in the research. It's validated me, right?
Yes.
What is the Surgeon General just came out with, social media is detrimental or can be. Well, do you know, listen, do you know,
Okay.
go look at research. Screen time, doing what I'm doing right now, screen time affects us and can
Yeah.
affect us in a negative way. So they've been doing studies on this for years, like 10, 15 years, maybe even longer. So we just need a balance. And think about your relationships. You need a balance. It can't
Yeah.
always be about your partner or your friends or you. We just need to remember that we need to look at the dynamics and the bigger picture. Right.
It's so well said. I can't
Right.
help but hear the imagery laden words that you're using, like, I see the other side. And
Right.
I'm just curious, that has to play a big role, not only in helping people or coaching people or working with people or even writing a book or just relationships in general. But it seems like you
Right.
have a really unbelievable way of using metaphors and language that helps
Right.
people see. Like,
Right.
what is your relationship to language and imagery and influence?
Well, I do believe that if people can see it, they
Yes.
can feel it. This is what I
Yes.
tell my
I love that.
clients. The more senses you use, it's in my books. The more
Okay.
senses you use, the more you make sense of things. So, George,
That's
I
so
can be
beautiful.
right. So I can sit here and look at my cat and sit outside in the yard, and I can have all these thoughts in my head. And unless I have schizophrenia, I can't hear it. I can't see it. I can't feel it. I can't taste it. So we need to take it out of here. It slows it down. It makes you
Mhm.
see a different perception. And that's why I tell my clients to even talk on their phones, because they like their phones. And if you talk in your phone and play it back to you, you've used your mouth, and then
Yeah.
you also use your ears to hear it. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess that I guess that's why one line of poetry can be more meaningful than a 400-page service agreement, right? Because you're like
Right,
you're drinking it in, like you're seeing it,
right,
you're saying it,
right,
you're breathing in. It's meaningful.
right, right.
Do you think that that might be the foundation for not only the conflicts we're having, but also for the Bempathy, where it's this idea of having a meaningful conversation?
Right. So again, I think before we started, I
Okay.
showed you that I have my cell phone here. And you
Yes.
know what? I want you to know that I put
Okay.
it away so I can't see it, because
Smart.
if you have your cell phone out and it's even off and you see it, you will spend more time thinking about your cell phone than you will about the person you're with. So I recommend everybody put it
Right.
away. But I just wanted to show you, though, this is what we're becoming. And I've noticed that some of the people that I work with and talk to, they've gotten a more blunted affect,
Yes.
because I want you to look around. Everybody out there, look around at people on their phones. My husband loves his phone and he plays
Right.
checkers, and he's like this. And so what happens to my face? It gets blunted. And if
Yeah.
it's blunted, I can't feel as much. And if I'm also looking at this, I'm not practicing reading your face. And if I
Right.
can't read your face or mimic you or even mirror you, my empathy is going
Mm.
to go down. Even though empathy is back on the rise, I don't know, that's research. So I
Right.
don't know what that means, because to me, if I can't read your facial cues or your body language, or really relate with you and connect with you, how am I going to be empathetic with you? So this is what we need to practice more.
Yeah. It brings up, like, I have a bunch of questions written down, and let me just jump into this
Oh,
first one right here, because I think that this is a great segue for it. So,
okay.
like, how can we embrace the dualities in life without being constrained by them? And what deeper truths might emerge when we view conflicts through the third side of the coin?
So could you repeat that
Yeah, I
again?
know it's kind of a
Yeah.
complex one. I had written it
Yeah.
down when just coming off the
Okay.
third side of the coin, because I think,
Right.
prior to this, and maybe even influenced now by social media, like there's a lot of like
Right.
dualities. It's like this or
Yeah.
that, black or white.
Oh,
But
right.
so how
Oh,
can
I
we
got it.
embrace the dualities in life without being
Yeah.
constrained by them? You know what I mean by
Right.
that? Like it seems like that's what the third side of the coin is showing us. It's like it's not heads or
Exactly.
tails. Look at this
Right.
part that runs all the way around it on some level. So
Right.
how can we embrace these dualities that life gives us without being constrained by them?
First, I have one word. We need to
Okay.
practice, practice.
That's
And
true.
so we are practicing something, like I told you, the phone, or we're practicing talking to you. We need to have a balance, and humans are constantly working at a balance.
Yep.
And so my feel is we need to make our life interesting. We
Okay.
need to make it more interesting than the little bits of what we find out on the internet. And so, I'm doing that. So we need to push ourselves, because I am getting a dopamine rush. Everyone is, with the little pings on your phone. I
Yeah.
get a I got a dopamine rush when you just gave me the compliment. So if I'm going to constantly have something that I don't have to be motivated to do anything with, it's just here and I hear pings and I'm feeling good about it.
Yeah.
It's hard to break away. So we need to put the phone away. We need to have some safe places in our life, whether
Yeah.
it's at the dinner table, and we need to do it regularly, consistently. And I would say do it, it's like a drug. So I say do it a little bit at a time. So that's what I say. So if in
Yeah.
the daytime you're gaming this is what I do with my clients. They game
Okay.
for 8 hours on Saturday. So if they're gaming 8 hours, I said do 7 hours. And then in that other hour, fill it in with something fun. And then I may make some suggestions to that, because they might not know. And so that's what we're going to need to do, because we are creating what is called black and white thinking, which is what
Yes.
you okay. And that's a cognitive distortion, which I'm right, you're wrong, or she's right, you know, I'm wrong. Either way. And and also I want to talk a little bit about that with the empathy. So
Yeah.
empathy could be increasing, But empathy, no buts about it. Because if you say butts, I sit on my butt. BUTT. When you say butt, if I say you're beautiful, and then I say, but I don't like your shirt, then I just counter. So we take that out. Okay. So, okay, I say it a lot. Anyway, what we need to do though is we need to think about and step back and look at the bigger picture, and then see first, be dynamically watchful, which is what I have in my book. Mindful. Yeah, mindful is not enough. Think about it. If you're in virtual reality, do you know that your brain cannot tell the difference?
I didn't know that.
Can't tell the difference. And it's wonderful. People are doing surgery without hurting people, practicing, and it has wonderful things. We just need to be more aware. That's why I say we need what is called an accomplice in our life. And I can be that person's accomplice. I help people see a third side of the coin. You are an accomplice to so many people because you have a podcast. So and I looked at your podcast. So you help people see a different, another perspective, a third side of the coin in many different topics. So there you go. You do it yourself. Yeah.
It's interesting to think about when I think about what I've done on the podcast, and
Right.
just having this many conversations, even though it's virtual, it's taught me so much about communication. And maybe because it is virtual, like there may be lacking the felt presence of the other. Like I can't come up and be like, touch your shoulder and be like, Jill, that was such a beautiful point. Or I can't be like, I can't be next to you and have this pheromone exchange. We're like, that was mind blowing, Jill. Thank you. Like, but on some level, I feel like we could still have, maybe through some sort of paralinguistics or something, like there is something that's happening between us and conversations that are online that we can still learn from, right? Like we can use social media to better ourselves on some level, right?
Yes, we can. We just need to understand where things are coming from and that everything has a benefit. So I was just reading about, someone asked me a question the other day and I was, I'm really not sure on that answer. So I research things and look up things, not on TikTok or Instagram. I research. It's real important. So I'll tell my clients, look in Psychology Today, because the people there have licenses. And I'm not saying that TikTok or Instagram or any of these different platforms are negative. You just need to know where the information is coming from. So so now I just lost track of what I was saying about looking up stuff. So
no, it's true.
Yeah.
If we get lost in this, and I'm coming up on 50 years old, so I may be, the Generation X might be one of the last generations that was born without the internet, at least in the Western world on some level. And I think that you did have to go, and the propaganda or the paid information that's out there wasn't as well disguised as it is now. So when you go to TikTok, when you go to Instagram, it's imperative to understand that the majority of people with whom you're getting or sharing information with have an agenda behind it. That's usually company science, or it's usually, someone that's paid money to have that influence out there. So I think it's imperative to do your own research and start looking at maybe medical journals instead of an influencer or someone on that level. But I think that is a detriment to information gathering that may not have been in existence that long ago. But it's, I guess it kind of, here's another question that kind of comes to mind is like, when we talk about empathy and staying away from our phones, do you think that we're going to get to a point where we can treat emotional landscapes with the same care and sustainability that we do with ecosystems? Can we draw that parallel and maybe learn from that?
Well, I think we can learn from anything if we want to. We need to be open, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, people that come to see me, they're open to have a better life. And now there are some people that will go see therapists that just want to complain. Those people don't come see me because I'm real direct. And I even tell them, go to my website, because that's who I am. And I will give you homework. Some people will put it in file 13. Do you know people don't know what file 13 is? File 13 is the trash. And so, so therapists may give suggestions, and There are a lot of therapists, they just sit there and listen. That's why I say I'm more like a communication coach, because if you think about it, everything's relational. I have that in my book, and
Mhm.
I'll explain that later. Also,
Yeah, please.
everything is communication. Think about it. Even if I'm sitting here, not doing anything, not saying anything, my whole physique is communicating something to you. And then it's also communicating something different to you than it would be to the person beside you because of your background and your perception on things. So communication, I have people come in and they say, Jill, I'm having trouble communicating. Well, that's a big, right? That's a
Yeah,
big thing,
it's huge.
right? Yes. And I like to think of communication like a dance. So you
Love it.
want to flow. Yeah, you want to flow with the people. The cadence. I talk about cadence. And even in one of my book, I talk about speeds. I talk about people being a car. One of my favorite analogies is that I believe, this is my theory, that everyone is like a 1968 Camaro. They're beautiful, right? They're a classic.
Yeah, great car.
Great car, right?
Yes.
And so you don't want to make it a Mercedes, because then it wouldn't be that classic. So you want to tune it up, realign it, and polish it. And you want to do that as often as you can to keep it running smoothly. And you align it to keep it going straight. So if it gets off alignment, like we do in life,
Yeah.
even me as a therapist, we
Yeah.
need to be tuned up and realigned. And so that's how I think of people. And we go different speeds.
Yeah.
Like I like to be that red Ferrari and go 200 miles an hour. If you go real fast, which is what technology is doing for us, think of yourself when we are online and we are doom scrolling. We are in that Ferrari going 200 miles an hour, and you can't see clearly when you are going
Yep.
fast. So I tell my clients, think of your leg as having a throttle on it, pull it back and go a little slower, whatever your speed is, so you can see clearer, so you can see the red flags. So you might even see a good looking hunk over there. I mean, there's so many things you may be missing, right?
Yeah.
And so we just need to start looking at ourselves and our life. And if our world is cluttered, then we need to look at ourselves first and get to love ourselves and find out who we are. I mean, sometimes we never find out who we are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does it take courage to slow down?
can, can I tell you a funny story?
Please, I would love that.
I think it's funny because I tell this to my couples
Okay.
that will come in. So one day, this was probably about 2 years ago, and I just celebrated my 10th year anniversary on my second marriage.
Happy anniversary.
Thank you. Till death do us part. Okay. So anyway, I'm sitting, his name's Byron, and we're sitting watching TV, and I'm looking at him and I'm going, Byron, all you do is sit and watch TV and stuff your face. It's gross. So you know what he said to me? He goes, well, Jill, that's what you're doing. And I said, you're right. Yeah. He's a therapist too, by the way.
Imagine that.
Yeah. It's very interesting. Yeah, but he's more analytical than me. He is constantly analyzing me. And let me tell you something. I do my bye. I go walk and take a walk. So that's exactly what you said. So sometimes it's just easier to look at other people, to blame, and even blame. I don't even like blame. I like to just say it's the dynamics, and we need to take responsibility that we're not perfect. So not so much blame. That blame word is, I don't know. When I say blame, it's a word. What do you think of when I say blame?
I think of like a wet blanket.
Yeah, and my face.
My face. Blame them.
Yeah, right.
Put on them.
So just let's take responsibility that we're all imperfect. I let my clients know I'm imperfect, know, and it's important because people like to be with people that they know aren't perfect. That they know that person might know what they know. They just know that they're not perfect. And then they feel more at home with that person. Yeah.
in your experience and in your opinion, do you think
Yeah.
that that's what we're seeking out in relationships is sort of like this Jungian mirror? Or maybe you could give some aspect. Like it seems that there's patterns in these relationships. Like we find someone with whom sometimes we
Right.
think we find someone who will fix us subconsciously, or maybe
Yeah.
we see
Right.
ourselves in someone else. But maybe you could
Right.
speak to the idea of patterns in relationships.
Well, gosh, that's big.
I know.
So there is something called the attachment theory that I will have clients look up themselves. And by
Okay.
the way, I like people to do their own homework because it gets you to remember it and retain it better. If I
Yep.
just tell you something, you're more likely to forget it. It
Yep.
means more if you look it up. I give some things and then, so they'll look that up. That's one thing that does affect you. And so when you're raised with parent figures, it doesn't matter who they are. Usually, it depends on what theorist you're talking to. We
Hmm.
will try to, let's say if we had a parent figure that worked a lot
Yeah.
and so they weren't there for us. So we may be attracted to emotionally unavailable people
Mm.
or
Yep.
people that aren't so much there, and because we're trying to relive that and fix it. That's the easiest way I can explain it.
Hmm.
And so all we need to do is I have people do this is write down a list of the characteristics of the people that you want in your life. That's friends, that's lovers, that's anybody. And that's what you need to stick with. The problem is a lot of times we put down what we don't want. It's yeah. So I have my clients do it and then we go over it and then we edit it. So there's a lot of times I'll say, I want my husband to stop nagging me. Well, then my brain hears nagging. So I want my husband to speak to me with respect.
Mm.
See, do you see the difference? And
Yeah.
so, and we do that. And then also a lot of people don't even know what they want. So you know what I do? I tell them,
What?
write down what you don't want. And then on the opposite side, you write the opposite. And that's what you do want. And then if they've had a tragic relationship, I tell
Hmm.
them, write down all the negative qualities of that person and then write down the opposite of that, of those characteristics. And that needs to be at the top of your list so that you don't go back and find that person.
That's beautiful information. Thanks for sharing that. I f
Right.
I feel like if
Right.
I did that exercise, then the list of things that I don't want would probably be things about myself that I don't like.
Yeah.
Does that sound too crazy? Or have you found that is
No,
that something that happens?
yes, that is that. Yes. There's so many different, do you know, we are so complex, yet we
I
are so
know.
simple.
Yeah.
So we're simple to the aspect that we want to feel, we want to fit in, we want to be appreciated, we want to be respected, and we want to be heard. So
Yeah.
that's the simplicity.
Yeah.
The the difficult part is we are so complex because no one has the same brain, no one
Mm.
has the same retina, no one has the same fingerprints, not even identical twins. So everyone, including me and you, have a different language. Forget the men and women. Okay. I
Yeah.
don't care if you're them, that, or an it. Everyone has a different language. And we need to be more aware of the cadence and the words that other people use. And the more that you can mirror it and reflect it, the more that they will listen to you. Right. And
Yeah.
you'll
Yeah.
connect. Yeah.
That is beautiful. I
Thank
love
you.
the yeah, of course. I love the
Mhm.
analogy of the Camaro, and when I think about
Oh,
that, like, the word authenticity comes up for me, and you
right.
talked about the Camaro going fast, but
Yes.
it seems that so many of us, especially in today's world with the cell phone or with social media, like, we
Right.
are trying to put that Mercedes emblem on the Camaro and just trick everybody, like, "Hey, this is a old new Mercedes over here." Like, what is it like? And that seems to be the fear on some level. What in your opinion, like, is there a relationship between fear and authenticity?
Well, will you remind me that? And because I
Yes.
want to say one thing of what you
Yeah,
just said,
please,
because it's,
please.
I have these young people telling me, I do not put a filter on when I go online.
I love it.
And maybe I should. And so, and so what they're telling me is that when they put a filter online and they want to still have that filter, and we're not talking about just the outside, the inside filter. They want to have that when they're in the real world. So if you are not being authentic, then you are not going to be happy with yourself. You will feel displaced, and it will cause depression, stress, anxiety, all these things that are going on. That's one of the many things. So that might have even answered your question. So I think it's interesting. And
Yeah.
FYI, plastic surgeons are getting a lot more work, a lot more business. Yeah.
Wow.
Because people want to
Wow.
look like they do online.
Yeah, and
Right.
especially with all these crazy new filters and stuff, you can just put a filter on and you don't have any
Right.
blemishes. You look like your face is more symmetrical. Like
Right.
it's so
Yeah.
interesting to see
Right.
the painted masks and rattles we still use.
They they even do, if you look at TikTok and maybe Instagram too, they will turn you into a cartoon, which I
Yeah.
think is which I think is interesting, because that will bring me to this.
Yeah.
This was a cover of this other book. The book
Okay.
now is this. I
Okay.
changed it because people thought this was for kids. It's for adults. I came up, what makes my Bempathy unique, and
Okay.
I'm going to work, George, to animate them myself because we have AI.
Yeah.
I might take a course. I want to animate these characters, because this is Beacon, this is Brighton, and this is Bo. This was my dog that died a year
Mm.
ago. I found her on the street. She saved me. She was wonderful.
Love it.
Anyway, so these are fraternal twins. So he is of color and he's a minute older. So he is the leader. Someone said, "How come you made a guy a leader?" I don't know, because the name Beacon to me seems like a
Right.
guy. I don't, who knows? And
Yeah.
so, anyway, he looks like a lighthouse and he is the beacon
Mm.
of light. And he shines on his sister and enlightens her. And she has starry eyes. And then you have little Bo that's always by her side, helps tie things together, and is the compromiser. So we are all okay. We can be all these or one of them. These are the
Right.
three personalities in our world. Think about it. An instigator is a leader. So that's
Mm.
it. Those are the person. So you think, what person? You're probably a leader, and I bet you do compromising, right?
Yeah.
Because you're from Hawaii, and right,
Yeah. Yeah.
right.
I work at the Boys and Girls Club on afternoons, and I gotta
Oh, do
tell
you?
you,
Yeah.
there is nothing more psychologically rewarding and challenging and fascinating than dealing with a group of second graders. Like, all the emotion is raw. You see the Beacons, you see the Brightons, and you see it in the
Right.
same individual. And you can't help but be
Right.
like, oh my gosh, this is me this many years ago.
Yes,
Oh my gosh, this is a situation that's happened in my life. Like, it's
that's
it's
right.
so beautiful to get to see the
Right.
psychology playing out and doing. But this brings up this idea of you had mentioned that this is the attitudes of our world. Not, you didn't say attitudes, but like Beacon, Brighton. I'm sorry.
Personalities. Yeah, these are
Okay,
personalities.
can we extend that to like generations? On some level, when I see these Instagram filters and when I see
Yeah.
technology coming up, I see the kids without a rite of passage from a wisdom keeper. And I know I'm kind of going through different areas right
Oh,
there, but it
wow.
seems like we're lacking the wisdom keepers and the rites of passage and the handing down of wisdom. Instead, we're getting AI, we're getting new filters, and we're getting this
Right.
bottom up transition of technology. But
Right.
maybe you could speak to this idea of rites of passage and the beacons. Do you think maybe we need some more beacons from the older wisdom keepers?
So I think we need to have people model what they
I
talk about.
love that. I love that.
So
Yes.
one thing my son loves about me, there's probably some things that drive him crazy, is that he says, "Mom, you know when you've made a mistake. You
Mhm.
know your imperfections, and then you let people know." And I think that is a good thing for us to accept our imperfections, and it makes us wonderful. If you go to places where they have all
Yeah.
this plastic surgery, I'm for plastic surgery. I mean, I want to look good too. But what I'm saying is, if you make yourself look too perfect, you look pretty, you don't look beautiful. So
Wow, I like that.
it's the imperfections that
Yes.
make us look beautiful,
Yeah.
right? And that's what I think we need to not dwell on our imperfections. How can we use that imperfection to make us this wonderful person that we really are or can be or improve ourselves. So that I'm constantly working on, you can see how I exude a lot of
Yes,
energy. So
I
I
love it.
work, I work at channeling that, because sometimes that can be too much for people. And so when you come see me in my office, it's more channel. I still get excited. It's more channeled. So that's what I'm saying. So you love it, although it can be, it's all how you look at things. So I can call it, it got me in trouble when I was younger. So when I'd work with people, people would take it wrong. So yeah.
Yeah,
So
you're preaching to the choir. I feel like I exude a similar amount of energy to people, and it can be very
you do.
off-putting.
Well, and I'm enjoying it. That's why when you were talking and you said all these wonderful things about me, I swear that has made my day, the whole day. Even asking before you even really got to know me, asking if I could be on again. That is such a big compliment. You know, I'll tell you. May I tell you another story?
Please, I would love that.
Okay. So I love my mom, and she is still alive today at 91, and she's just a pistol. She's done so many good deeds for all. I cannot tell you,
Mhm.
just so many good deeds. Anyway, so she went to see this famous actor. I don't know who he was, in some type of play, and she was allowed to go backstage to see him. I wish I could remember his name. And she goes up to him, and he turns to her and he goes, "Did I do okay?" And my mom's like, "Oh yes, you're fabulous." Here, this famous person that is known for being the best of all actors in the theater asked my mom, "Was I okay?" So we're human, and we just need to realize that everyone, no matter this, we need to stop putting people on pedestals because they're falling off. So even when my clients will compliment me, I will tell them. I had someone just say all these wonderful things the other day. I said, I want you to know that I'm imperfect. And I told her, I said, because I don't want you to put me on a pedestal, because then I'm going to fall. So we want to, it's not so much that we're equal, because come on, there's some people that work
Yeah,
harder than others as humans.
yeah,
And to just, we have pain, and not all of us. There's like a small smidgen that don't. They die young, by the way. So most of us have pain, and most of us want to avoid pain. We'll do it from eating, doing
yeah.
scrolling, whatever it takes to avoid the pain. Yeah, and we just need to remember that. So I'm hoping this, just even that with my Bempathy, will get people to realize that. And the reason I talk about dynamic watchfulness and not mindfulness anymore, because
Mhm.
mindfulness to me is just too much about me. And
Mm.
we have technology now, and it is a part of our life, George. And we
Yes.
can't just say, "I'm not letting my kids on the phone." No, it's a part of our life. And we need to learn how to work with it. When I was younger and the TV came to be, my mom and dad told me everybody else got to watch a lot of TV. I was only allowed 1 hour of TV. That was it. And if I didn't do my homework, I didn't get any. So it's all how we deal with this. We need to understand we are working with technology, and it's working for us, right?
Yeah,
We're having a good
yeah.
time. And we just need to work with it, not work against it. Work with it. Yeah.
I love it. I can't
Yeah.
help but think of the great book by Marshall McLuhan called The Gutenberg Galaxy, where he talks about the
Yeah.
way in which the printing press fundamentally changed the way we interpret
Oh,
ourselves and the world around us with concepts
right.
like exact repeatability. And then now we
Right.
have this new format or this derivative
Right.
of that's fundamentally changing how we
Right.
communicate on some level. Do you think that
Right.
we're going to see profound changes the same way the printing press gave us profound changes? And
Yes. Yes. And I think it's positive and negative.
yeah, of
I
course.
and it is how we look at it.
Yeah.
To me, this is me, as
Okay.
and I tell people I'm one therapist. This is me with my 40 years of doing this. That I think and love people. And I know you are the same. I love people.
Yeah.
I know that there's some people that might get on my nerves. I might get on some people's. I truly love people. And if you love cats or love people, it's going to come through. And I think we need to be more into loving and caring about the human race, and then everything will fall into place. That rhymed. That rhymed.
Say it again. Let's hear it again.
I don't know if I can do it. It's like my class. Okay. We need to love the human race, and then everything will fall into place.
That's beautiful.
It's so easy. And that's what my
Poetry.
books do. Yeah, I guess. Anyway, and so my books simplify things such as that. And I give many different techniques, like we're talking about. To me, it's common sense, just like when you do your podcast. I couldn't, not podcast, it was too difficult for me. Anyway, for you, it's probably common sense. You have the mic, you put your lighting up, and it makes sense to you, right? And we all have our place and our specialties and our gifts, and we need to find it and then share it with others. I think that's my feel, and it makes us feel good to do that.
One thing, like, there's a lot of things that I love about our conversation so far, but one thing I really want to touch on is this idea
Yes.
of, like, you're creating a new word that represents a new set of ideas that doesn't have a
Yeah.
whole lot of residue on it. And, like, you can't go
Right.
anywhere without a linguistic pathway. Like, is this something you've put a
Right.
lot of thought into? Like, it's a
I
brilliant thing
did.
to do. Can you
Oh,
tell
you're
us
so
about that
sweet.
process? It's the truth. It's
Yes.
wonderful. I would love to learn
Oh,
more.
so I'm always thinking, and we're all always thinking. I know we're not supposed to say always and never. Our brain is constantly going. Some people more than
Yeah.
others. For instance, today I was up at 1:00, and I'm thinking, and I'm thinking how I can. I'm the power of attorney over my brother, and my mom's not doing. So I'm thinking of all the things that I can do to make things better. And so because of that, I was thinking about the world. If I could sprinkle happy dust on everyone, George, I would do it. My clients laugh at me because they say, "Oh, you
Yeah.
would." So since I couldn't do that, I created what I believe we need in the world, and that is to banter, which is lighthearted chit chat. What happened to humor? And humor needs to be done in the right place at the right time. In my books, I have TP, which is not toilet paper. It's timing and position. If I go down Westheimer in Houston, Texas, I can just as easily hit the red lights as I can hit green lights.
Yes.
So yeah, so we need to be more thinking about this, and that's what I was thinking about with my Bempathy. So to put that with something heavy like empathy, because empathy is deep. Do you know this happened one time with one client, and I'll never forget it. I won't forget it. So I am very empathetic. Women, by the way, are more empathetic than men. We can, yeah. Now, and there's people that are more empathetic than others. I am very empathetic. I can feel energy. And matter of fact, if I'm not in a good mood, you don't even want to be in my room. Okay. So this one particular day, I was seeing over 40 clients a week during COVID. And I was seeing one of my wonderful clients, and I was sympathizing with that client, not empathizing, one time. And there was I got goosebumps. There was such a disconnect. I felt that I owed that client another session. And I believe that client even felt it. Sympathy is feeling for somebody, whereas empathy is being with that, feeling with that person. It goes a lot deeper than that. And it's easier to sympathize. And I do believe that a lot of people are doing that, and people take it as they're really empathizing. And without empathy, you cannot be compassionate. And just because you have empathy does not mean you're compassionate. Compassion is an act. It's sort of, if I see you and I saw you had a bunch of books and I opened the door for you, I'm being compassionate. So it's an act of service. And so we need to, I guess, practice this. And that's how I got with this Bempathy. I was just watching how things were transpiring. And I wanted, I was going to come up with, what did I come up with? Schmooze. It was going to be schmooze and empathy. Schmempathy. And somebody had already, do you like that?
Yeah, I like it.
And
Yeah.
so Schmempathy was my first. And then I looked it up and somebody had already used that. It wasn't trademarked or anything. And I said, you know what? I don't like that anyway. And so then I said, what about banter? Banter and empathy, Bempathy. And that's how I really thought of it. And then my characters, I remember talking to my dad and his caregiver for a whole year. I would call them up and say, I need some characters to go with my Bempathy, because people relate better with cartoon characters, even adults. Come on, what did Park City? What are those cartoons that the
South
adult cartoons?
Park, the
South Park. Yeah,
Family Guy, all of these
exactly.
cartoons that
Right.
came out. Yeah.
Yes, because see, they're more expressive and they're easier to read. So people realize. So I said, I want something like that. And so they would come up with these really intellectual words. And so then I would look, I like to simplify
Yeah.
things. Yeah. And so I simplified with beacon of light. A beacon is, what does a lighthouse do? It helps guide you, right? It's not a boss. It guides you. It brightens your life. It's beautiful. And then I even described what the person would look like to my graphic artist. And then I said, I think fraternal twins, because I want them connected. And then I said, what could the girl brighten? She's brightened. And then he came up with the starry eyes. And then my dog came about a year later. I was walking Hershey. And Hershey saved me, by the way. I was in a very bad accident in 2010 where I even had PTSD for 2 years, really, really bad. And I found Hershey, or Hershey found me on the street. I do believe in this. I don't know if you believe. I believe in energy. My son buys me things from Hawaii with the peace sign and all that. I believe in it.
Yeah,
So
I'm with you.
Hershey came up to me in the 5th Ward, which is not a great section in Houston, Texas. I was working there contracting. And Hershey came up to me and said, take me home. And the vet told me that day when I took her there for $400 and something that Hershey would have died if I didn't pick her up that day. But no buts. Hershey picked me up. So So anyway, so I'm walking Hershey. That was a side story. So I'm walking Hershey one day and I'm looking down at her and I said, you know what? Hershey gets me to see another side of the coin. Hershey gets me to step back and learn how to compromise. I said, you know what? I'm going to use Hershey. But I said, let's use a bow. Because she's a girl, Hershey, will help tie everything together. A compromiser. Right. That's how I came up with that. Thank you for letting me share that. Thank you. That was wonderful. I enjoyed that.
Yeah. Well, I think it's imperative. Not only a linguistic pathway, but so many symbolic references. Like that makes it land so much more significantly, whether it's a bow or a lighthouse or the idea of a cartoon character that is able to be bigger than life on some level. Like,
right. Yeah.
I think it shows how powerful communication can be. Maybe it's explains how Bempathy can be. Like it's a whole new world of expression, and I can't help but see a spiritual component in there too. Is there a spiritual component to it?
Oh, yes. I just told you how little Hirsch came to me.
Right.
And think about being enlightened, or the light.
Lighthouse.
Matter of fact, when I do meditation with my clients or I do visualization, I use a warm white light or a soothing white light that protects you. So it's showing that it's bigger than us. And that's what spirituality is, that there's more to the world than just us. And you know what? It takes a load off of us. It enlightens us. There you go. So there you go. So the beacon of light is bigger and brighter. Right. There you go.
It's
right.
It brings up this idea that if you can see the trauma, the things that happen in your life, like the biggest mistakes, the death of a child, the death of a loved one, someone that maybe is suffering from mental illness, like
Right.
Isn't it interesting how these are the things that unite us as human beings? They transcend race, they
Right.
transcend gender, they trans everything. They're
Yeah.
like, you are part of something bigger. And only once you've begun to touch that fire that
Right.
burns brighter than any light, do you become someone with the experience to help other people through it on some level, right? Isn't it? It's so beautiful to
Right.
think about it like that.
Yeah, so you made me smile because I tell my clients the reason I'm a good therapist is because I've been through so much.
Yes.
So, and it's so
Yeah.
true because if you've been through something, you may not feel what they feel. You get it. You get that that is
Yep.
very painful. And it's really interesting that someone was talking to me the other day about how can we get Gen Zs to feel more and to understand relationships better, blah 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 blah. I think it was my son that was saying that. He's 33, and he was saying because they think different, they're looking at the
Sure.
devices, and so I said through movies, just like Walt Disney did for us. Think about it. He made it for
Hmm.
adults and children. And they usually somebody died at the beginning. It was,
Yeah.
if you think of Bambi, one of my
Bambi, of
favorite,
course.
the mom dies, right?
Yeah.
And I still remember the movie. And so that way, through movies, that will help our children also learn. We need to have fun, educating movies that show and model behavior of not just caring, but what do you do with that? When you empathize, what do you do with it? How does it help you? Because I could be a Republican and Democrat, and I'm going to
Yeah.
empathize with my peeps. If I empathize with my peeps, then I'm going to look at the other side and go, well, they're wrong. So we need to understand what empathy is. Empathy has some positive and negative. So we need to. What do you do with empathy? And that's to me what Bempathy is about. It's you're chit chatting and empathizing and going back and forth. And the mindset in my books and how I believe when you come to see me or whoever my friends are, I want to make that situation a win-win.
Yeah.
And I use this. I use the car dealer. The car dealer. Okay, you want him to think he won, and he wants you to think that you won because he wants you to come back.
Right.
And you want him to think that he won, so he gives you a good deal. So I say it's not manipulation. It's just
Mm.
making people feel good. If my husband loses a fight with me or a
Yeah.
discussion, then we both lost.
Yeah.
We both lost.
Yeah.
That's my feel. That's my thought. So
I love it.
that's you do like that? And so
I
that's
do.
how so I get my clients to just maybe change your mindset. See, we're having so much fun, and I had looked you up. Uh, well, it's important to know who you're talking with, and what your name is. So saying your name, George, a couple of
Yeah.
times, people like that. It makes us feel good, and it makes me feel good. So for birthdays, I take my friends out for their birthday because I get to
Yeah.
I'm sharing. I'm sharing. I could even have my favorite dessert. We're having a great time. I think, right? So, do you see what I'm saying? So, we need to just, if we could think that way, and they're bosses that you might not like, you're going to need to work with them. So, how can you make that a win-win? Sometimes you can't. I mean, come on, nothing is perfect. So, some things you're going to need to walk away and move on and get a tune up, get realigned, and go a different direction. There you go.
Yeah. It's true. I'm thankful for
Yeah.
the changing awareness that seems to be happening. And
Yeah.
when we think about social media and we think
Right.
about empathizing on some ways, I feel like this next generation that was born into this world of social media, like they're the first ones to have their entire lives be online, and you and I could probably remember back to things like, man, I am sure glad that wasn't online. I know that I can't be like, whoa, I'm glad that wasn't online. But there's going to be a generation of people that have it online, and they're going to look
Right.
back at the young next generation and be like, oh, I remember when I put that online. On some level, you can see this you can
Right.
see empathy beginning to find its way into
Oh,
the
yeah.
next generation, but
Yeah.
it hasn't made its move all the way through on
Yeah.
some level.
Yeah.
It's
That's
but
that's what I was saying. This person that does it's I think her name's Conrath. Uh, I can't remember, Sarah Conrath. Anyway, she does studies. She's at University of Michigan, and she does
okay,
studies about empathy. And she just did another study, and she was saying that empathy is on the rise. So she said it's
right,
fluid. It's exactly what you're saying. So it is fluid.
yeah,
And I do believe everything is cyclical, even our history
yes,
with our anger. If you go back to the 60s, we had a lot of
yeah.
it's just cyclical, and we just need to be aware of it. I do believe it's not just I believe, they've done research that
I'm
well, I mean they've done studies, and they're going to find more
with you.
studies that this technology that we're bringing, that's not man-made, that is not spiritual, is changing the brain structures.
Yeah.
It's shrinking the frontal lobe. It's doing bunches of different stuff to the frontal lobe, and they'll find out other things because they're just starting to do research on virtual reality. So virtual reality is just starting, George. So they're not, when you do virtual reality, sometimes you get headaches because you're just using your eyes. They're not doing smell. They're not using all your senses yet. So
Yep.
that if I pick up a pen in virtual reality, I'm only using one part of my brain. Whereas if I do this right now in reality, my whole brain is lighting up. So what my fear is what is happening is that our brain structure is going to change and not go back. So right now they think it will go back. So there's something
Mhm.
called neuroplasticity, which I love.
Right.
And I use, okay, so you know all about that. And I use that with my clients. I've worked with pain patients. I've worked with people with trauma, and you can change the structure of your brain. Usually they say if you stop exercising, like
Yeah.
your muscle goes to flab, right? So your
Sure.
brain does the same. It goes to baseline. My fear is that we're going to change the brain structure, because if I change the brain structure of my brain and then I have a baby, so many things are genetics.
Yeah.
And they even did a study. Go look up the snail theory, the
Okay. Thank you.
snail study. And what they did was they injected, they had a snail. This was mean. And they shocked it. They shocked the snail. And
Mm.
so that snail avoided that place where it was being shocked. So they took the RNA from that snail and put it into another snail and put that snail in the same position. And that snail that never was shocked avoided that little area that he could have gotten shocked. So they're saying that trauma is hereditary. To me,
Yeah.
everything is genetics. It's they say 50-50, nurture, nature. Who knows? I do know a lot is genetics. I do know that nature does help, because otherwise I wouldn't have a job.
Without a
So
doubt. I
yeah.
think I, I agree. I know we're kind of coming up on the closing of it, but
Oh,
we'll get into this when you come back. Or how are you doing on time?
okay. I don't know. Actually,
It's it's
actually,
about that time,
we
right?
did a whole
I know.
hour. You were
I know.
wonderful. You were
Well,
such a great host. Really.
thank
Thank
you.
you. Yeah.
I didn't even get through any of my. I would do like one question, and I have like another 10. But
I
when you
I
come
hope
back,
I said what you needed.
all of it. I would love to get into the idea of changing brain chemistry, default mode network, psychedelics, and the idea in which we can revisit our trauma in a meaningful way and almost a third person
Oh,
point of view. Because I've been talking to a lot of people about this, and maybe I'll have you come on with
yeah.
another guest. Anyways, I will just keep talking if I don't cut you short, if I don't cut it off right now. But before I do that,
Yes.
where can people find you? What do you have coming up, and what are you excited about?
Gosh, I have a bunch of podcasts coming up, and I
Okay.
don't know. I don't know what they're. I'd have to go look. So just look me up. I'm Jill Robin Payne, JILLPAYNE, and Robin like the bird, ROBIN. And I think if you look up my platforms, it's and my website is jillrobinpayne.com. And so look me up, email me. I tell people that, and I would love to hear from people. Anything that
All
they
the
would
links
like me to talk about. Yeah.
all the links will be in the show notes. So if you're within the sound of our voice, whether it's
Right.
today, whether you're live streaming 5, 10, 8 years from now, whenever it is, go down to the show notes and reach out to Jill. She's an incredible storyteller. She has 40 years of
Oh,
experience, and she's pioneering the ways in which we're going to be living in the future. And I really appreciate your time. Hang on briefly afterwards. But to everybody else, I hope you have a beautiful day, and go down, check out her books. They'll really help you see the world in a different way, in my opinion. And in her opinion, I think she would agree. That's all we got, ladies and gentlemen. Aloha.